Okay, so first we've got Market Square here. Market Square, I think, is a very good card, mostly because it's a 3 coin card that gives you non-terminal plus buy. It's really, really good. It's also got this cute effect where you trash and gain gold, which is, I don't know, people often think that's really good, and sometimes it is, but sometimes it isn't worth going for in mass, at least not to the degree that I see people go for it. But since it is a cheap pile that you can run pretty easily, I'd say you get it most games. Yeah, you're usually going to get it. Um, but often the game doesn't quite revolve around it as much as people think it does. Um, that's how I feel. Okay, okay, so Ironmonger. Here's another card. Like I think people pretty vastly overrate it. Um, it's obviously very good though. Like even like the fact that it's a cantrip that spies at your next card and lets you discard it. I mean that's pretty good on its own. But you also get a bonus when you do it. And you know those bonuses range from being really useful to you to not being that great. But yeah, usually they're of benefit to you. It's very rare that it's not good and that you're not going to get it. I think it's a staple. It's not quite centralizing. Like usually, if you lose the Ironmonger split, you haven't lost the game necessarily. It just sucks if you do. So yeah, but it's a very nice card. Obviously, supplements most strategies in the game, so it goes here as a staple. Catacombs, of course, it's a strong terminal draw card, like Smithy, so I'm putting it here. Um, yeah, you're usually going to pick it up. It also has this cute on trash effect that often can be used to clinch out an endgame, especially if you have something like upgrade. Um, but you know, most of the time you're just using it for the draw, and it's a little bit better than Smithy for that. Um, yeah, so this is where I'm going to put it. Okay, Pillage. So Pillage is like this card you'll get sometimes when you've got the opportunity for it. It's not really a niche card because it's not like there are pillage decks or anything. It's just kind of something usually that you end up buying because you had the opportunity to do it, and it is a very good attack. Um, it's nice because it gets right out of your deck and gives you 2 spoils, which are cool because they leave your deck pretty quickly. So yeah, I think it's just sometimes you pick up pillage. Um, I could see the argument for it not being that great though. Um, yeah, like yeah, it's either here or here. I guess I'm feeling generous toward it, and I'd put it here. The attack does hurt a lot, um, especially in like those games where you don't quite have a perfectly running engine, and like it can throw away your one draw card or something like that. Yeah, Tracer's already mad. Okay, I'm not sure if he's mad about catacombs or pillage. I'm guessing pillage. We'll see, or it could just be lots of things. All right, Sage. I also put in the sometimes tier. I think it's like generally a helpful card. Like very rare that I feel excited about getting Sage. It can help you cycle toward good cards early in the game, and it's nice for skipping junk later. But it can also get you in situations where you're not drawing anything with it. I don't know. That's pretty rare though. Like, it's okay. Like sometimes you get it. Sometimes it's good. Nothing too special there. Um, you got to be careful though. Like if you have like a good card that actually has like a low cost for whatever reason, for instance, like prizes from tournament, that kind of thing. Yeah. Okay, Beggar. I'm actually not gonna put it in Explain Yourself, Please. I think it's really more of a niche card. Beggar is pretty nice in the situations where a beggar is good. Usually those involve tower or fountain or gardens in some way, but yeah, like in those situations, beggar is amazing. Like I mean, it's one of the best cards at what it does, which is gets you 3 coppers. Um, See, he says scrying pool and apothecary. Oh yeah, okay. Tracer's saying like with Sage, you can skip scrying pool and apothecary. Yeah, those are definitely There's definite cases where you don't want a Sage, probably. But yeah, like most games, you're gonna skip Becker, but there is that rare game where it's pretty amazing. Um, the reaction effect is also pretty nice in certain circumstances. For instance, like defending against knights, since you can just put a useless silver up there and it's gone. Um, but yeah, most of the time I don't reveal it. Like if I get beggar, it's usually for the on play effect, I think. It's also good for spiking late game. Okay, Urchin. So Urchin, I think, almost definitely goes up here in centralizing. Like there are just so many games where the right play is to open double Urchin, and then get a third Urchin in your first shuffle. Like, Mercenary is just so sick. Like it's really important that you get it as soon as you can in a game where it's the only trashing. And even when it's not, like Urchin is a pretty annoying attack actually. Like sure, it only discards one card, but it's a cantrip, so I mean you can basically just spam them and like have several of them in your deck. But yeah, generally the idea is that you want to get 2 mercenaries as soon as possible, and then you don't mind trashing the second one once you run out of junk. Um, and often games like where you don't draw your mercenary enough are just games you lose. So yeah, I think it's definitely one of these kind of metagamey games or metagamey cards where you really need to have it when it's there. Um, okay, rats. Like rats is like just one of these perfect examples of a niche card. Yeah, obviously it's very, very good when you have trash for benefit cards and you can actually make use of the rats, and it really sucks if you don't have that. Pretty much. Of course, you know, you can run the pile and be cheeky like that. Sometimes that's good. Um, yeah, really nice card. But hard to explain to new players, but that certainly doesn't mean it's bad. It just means like you need to have the right um, opportunity to show them how it's done. And okay, if you don't get it, I guess I think someone recently on Reddit posted this or Discord or something. Yeah, the thing about rats is it replaces a card in your deck with a 4-cost card. Um, and that's why it's good with trash for benefit. Like you want cards that want more expensive junk to trash. Plus you get this plus card benefit when you trash it. Yeah, and it's a decent defense against trashing attacks too, sometimes. But again, that's a niche scenario. Like most games, you can safely ignore rats, yeah, except when you can't. All right, and then Poorhouse, I think also fits in the niche category pretty firmly. It is a very good economy card in like those decks where you're swimming in villages and you can like trash all your treasure very quickly. Doesn't even have to be that quickly to be honest. And yeah, like +4 coin, that's pretty nice if you can actually keep the 4 coin. But even if it's just +3, that's not bad either. Yeah, unfortunately, Poorhouse has the effect of tripping up cards like Upgrade, which is pretty sad, but I don't really count that against it. It's just like a thing you have to be aware of in those games. So yeah, I think it's definitely pretty solid in the games where it's good, but completely ignorable in games where you're using treasure payload, which are, let's be honest, like a pretty high percent of games. All right, Storeroom. I think this goes in usually. It's a card you're normally going to get at least one of. Um, Especially if you're able to do tricks with it, like if you're able to discard a bunch of cards from a big hand, or you're able to use draw to X to get all the cards back in your hand. Like you can make a lot of money with Storeroom, and of course the even nicer thing is it gives you a plus buy to use all that money. So it's an excellent card for draw to X decks, but also just general decks. Like as long as you've got a few villages, yeah, Storeroom is like basically a little bit more risky seller, so that's cool. Um, yeah, you're usually going to want one or two, um, maybe more depending on the scenario, but maybe you can ignore it in some kinds of decks. I usually get them. Okay, Marauder. So I think I'm a little divided between usually and sometimes here. Uh, I think it's really more on the usually side because yeah, junking your opponent obviously is very good, and it does give you the spoils, which is pretty cool for spiking early in the game. Can be pretty important. But if there's trashing in the kingdom, often like the junking does less than you think, and that spoils. While it does give you a nice economy boost, does slow you down a slight bit. So it's a little different than playing, say, Sea Hag. But I think most of the time, like the Marauder's worth it. I think. Okay, like when I say most of the time, I mean like when there's not like a really strong counter to it, it's worth it. But I hesitate to say this, but I feel like generally you should get Marauder for the spoils and not necessarily the ruining. I don't know, like if other people feel like it's that way. Like definitely, like the ruins are part of it, like wanting to junk your opponent when they can't do anything about it, especially. But if you can make use of the spoils, then it's certainly much better for you. Because the thing is, on play, Marauder doesn't do anything. So you really want to be able to make good use of both of the effects it does. Like if you're already getting good economy without it, it's not nearly as good. I don't know, a little hard to explain what I mean. Like, it's not a card you just automatically buy. Okay. All right, Squire. I think it's pretty much a staple. So it's a fairly weak village. Like it's basically Necropolis that gives you a coin when you play it as a village. But the more important thing about it is really the other effects. Like gaining silver early in the game can be pretty nice. And the +2 buys is a great little thing that it has late game. But then there's also the on trash effect, which can be very, very good, especially if there's attacks that are somewhat difficult to get, like goons or familiar. If you can like trash squires to get them, often it's worth it, especially if you have other villages available to you. You do need very strong draw with squire, but I think it's such a Swiss Army knife of a card that you're basically always going to get them. Yeah, and it's also a pile that's pretty easy to run late in the game, so there's that too. But you shouldn't over rely on it as your village. Like you shouldn't use it with +2 card draw, for instance, and think that's going to work out for you. Still, it's pretty nice. Squat. Yeah, Tracer saying it should be in usually. Um, yeah, I can see it. It's definitely between these two. It's not like that good. Okay. Now, yeah, he hasn't mentioned an important thing here, which is that this row is getting pretty long. So let's go ahead and do Scavenger. And Scavenger, I think I put pretty firmly in sometimes. It's a nice card. Obviously, discarding your whole deck can be pretty useful, but the more important thing is that it's top decking your card, either from your deck that you just discarded or that was in your discard pile already. And yeah, it's nice to be able to guarantee something either for next turn or this turn, depending on where you play the Scavenger. Um, yeah, so really just there's a lot of situations where it's useful. But for instance, getting back to your potion multiple times early in the game is one example where you might use it. Um, or really just like top decking any non-terminal draw, something you want to start a turn off with. Scavenger is good for that. Yeah, I can't really see you putting it better than that. I don't buy it every game, definitely. Okay, Armory. So yeah, I kind of like would put it around the same place as Workshop. You're usually going to get it. Um, Usually there's at least one 4-cost card that you want in mass. And it's not always the case. Of course, Armory has the effect of putting it on your deck too. So you'll want to be gaining cards like this guy that you want to get in mass with it. It's not very good at all if you're going for victory card rushes. But yeah, like people often just underestimate how good it is to top deck something or stick it in your hand. Definitely puts Armory a cut above Workshop in a lot of cases. Um, yeah, not much else to say about it. Like, it's a really good gainer, at least like when there are good targets for it. If there are not good targets for it, then you're not going to get it. So yeah, it's not really a staple. Um, all right, Wandering Minstrel. I'll just do it since this row is getting so long. It's pretty much centralizing. This is, in my opinion, the best village in the game, bar none. It's cheap, only 4 cost, and in addition to having a regular village effect, it also spies at 3 cards, and it discards the ones you probably didn't want to draw anyway, and puts the ones you did want back on top of the deck. So yeah, that's just insanely good. I mean, you compare it to like Cartographer, which is kind of doing the same thing, but it's more expensive and it doesn't give you plus actions. Yeah, Wandering Minstrel comes out on top there. Like I think, um, yeah, I don't think it's overrated at all here. I think it's definitely like a card where you want to get them pretty much every game, and you probably want to get a lot of them. Like I even think it's right to open with Wandering Minstrel more often than I'd care to admit, especially if you've got a card like Page that you need to play pronto. Yeah, so don't underestimate it for sure. And let's do these since we're coming up on the limits of these rows. Okay, Grave Robber. So I think Grave Robber is actually like a really good card, of course. I mean, it's kind of like a mini expand, trashing actions into 8 cost cards, um, or I don't know, trashing like a ruins into something, um, or really just like gaining any kind of good cards out of trashing other cards is nice. Of course, it can also gain things from the trash, which ironically, I think, even though it's like the cute part of the card, it's often the less useful part of it because it's a little bit slow, but it does put them on top of your deck, which is often like missed in the card text. Like I actually for like a year I didn't notice a Grave Robber did that. But that's really cool that you can just top deck stuff that you get out of the trash. But with that said, I mean it's basically a sometimes card. Like even though the effects are good, like, it's often just really hard to set up and have it pay off the way you want it to. Like you should definitely be looking for ways to use Grave Robber as your payload. Um, you'll win a lot more games that way, but I'd be lying if I said like you're going to get it every single game and have it be amazing. No, you got to think about it a little bit harder than that. Okay. Okay, so on that note, Rogue, I'm pretty much just going to put in the same tier because it's a similar card in many respects. So it's either a gainer or an attack, obviously depending on what's in the trash. Unfortunately, it can be a pretty easy attack to defend against if you have some way of trashing silver, because that's like the worst thing to get out of Rogue most of the time is a silver. If like silver's in the trash, then it's making this card really crappy. Now, the dream is attacking your opponent's cards and then stealing them with another rogue. If you can set that up, it's often very, very good. Um, and there's a pretty decent amount of boards where you can do that. But I think in a lot of cases you can't do that. And so you need to make sure it's actually a good board for Rogue before you go for it. It's a little bit slow to set up, and often like you can be winning the game instead of trying to do this steal your opponent's card strategy, which sometimes is winning the game, to be fair. Okay. Um, Junk Dealer. Junk Dealer, yeah, it's like one of the best trashers in the game. Easy. Like if you can open with it on 5-2, that's just really, really good. And probably you want to get a couple of them early in the game, most games where it's there. Um, and the nice thing about it is that, of course, it's a cantrip, which is always good. And it also gives you coin for trashing something, which is a nice trade. When you think about like Moneylender trashing copper and giving you some money, well, Junk Dealer does that, but for anything. So like it's a really good response to attacks. It's very good for getting rid of your early game cards. It's just good all around, pretty much. Uh, there's very few games where I ignore Junk Dealer. Um, yeah. Okay, where are we getting stuffed here? There's so many cards in this set and also the next couple of sets. Let's just do knights. So knights also centralizing, but they're centralizing, I guess, in a different way than a lot of these cards. Like I actually don't think knights are even really that good. The problem is that if you don't compete on the knight split, you're gonna get overrun by these attacks. Pretty much, yeah, like there's just so many games where it can be completely lopsided because your deck's getting trashed down. And sure, there might be counters in the kingdom that allow you to build up safely while ignoring knights, but I think that case is pretty rare. Like you usually need to get knights to defend against the other knights. And then of course, I'd be remiss if not mentioning, Dame Anna, of course, is very, very powerful on a lot of boards, especially if there's no other trashing. If you can get a couple of trashes in with Dame Anna, you're often set. But there are other good ones like Sirvander, very nice, gaining that at gold. Dame Natalie, is that the one that gains? Is that one the one that's like a workshop? I forget. But yeah, that one is really good. But yeah, the most important thing is just the trashing attack and like the fact that you have to contend with it if someone goes for the knights. So yeah, they become a centralizing part of the game as soon as someone kind of breaks the what do you call it, the standstill and gets a knight. So yeah, okay, Band of Misfits. So I think it's sometimes like there are these boards where you have a lot of options for your Band of Misfits and you want to get it, and then there are boards where like there's one card you want to imitate with it, and in those cases, why wouldn't you just buy that card instead? Yeah. Um, yeah, like it needs a dream board to be a really good card. Um, it's still like pretty good in most games, but if the pile runs out, then it loses a lot of power, like the pile of the card that you want to play. Um, so yeah, not much else to say about it. It's pretty situational, but really good in those situations. Um, but funny, like it's such a simple card, like considering how complex the card probably is to code. Um, all right, Vagrant. Yeah, Vagrant, like this card you're usually gonna get, even though like it's not really that good. It can be a lab, of course, if you have lots of ruinses, victory cards, that kind of thing. Um, and it's cheap, so it's nice. Like it. So if you think you're gonna get extra draws out of a lot, you should probably get a lot of them. It's an excellent target for tokens, especially inheritance, which I'm calling a token, even though it's not really a token. Um, yeah, yeah, definitely. Like if there's a reason to get vagrants, you should probably load up on them. It's usually better than silver in those cases, and they're always pretty good late game when you start greening. Um, Not much else to say about it. Like, don't underestimate like the fact that it looks at your next card. Sometimes that information can be really valuable. Of course, that's true with a lot of cards like that, but I don't know. It's just a little pro tip there. Okay. Hey, I cleared up some of these rows. That's nice. So Forager, I feel like yeah, Forager is pretty strong. It's a staple card. You're pretty much, I don't know. Does it go in centralizing? I'm curious what the viewers think. Like, I'm curious how they feel because I do think Forager like it. I think it's a little overrated, but it is definitely pretty good. Like often opening double Forager is very good. It's especially great in games where you can make use of it as an economic option. Like if you can trash silver, gold, some other alternate treasures, and make them worth like 5 coins or something. Yeah, yeah. Akuchi thinks staple. Tracer thinks. Oh, but he also would have put junk dealer in staple. Okay, yeah. It just depends on how you look at this whole system, I guess. Yeah, I see forager is like slightly worse than junk dealer. Yeah, but yeah, it's one of those cards you really can't ignore because I mean it's non-terminal, and that's the thing. Like a non-terminal trasher, it's always going to be at least pretty good. And also it can trash anything. It's not limited like other trashers, like Moneylender or something. So yeah, It's also an easy pile to run out. That's another thing about it. It only costs 3, gives you a plus buy, so it helps you get extra cards. And look at that hand. Look at the hand on that lady. My God, that is a meaty hand. Did I just ruin the image? No. Okay. Yeah, it's a good card. Okay, Hermit. Now Hermit, I'm gonna put up in centralizing because I think Hermit's just really really good, which is ironic because it can only trash it can't trash coppers. Yeah, it can only trash like estates, curses, actions, that kind of thing. Um, you think Forager's a dude? Wait, okay, wait, no, I have to think it's a dude. I guess it could be a dude. Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, but I've never seen Forager as a dude personally. But anyway, yeah, Hermit. Hermit, it's a pretty nice trasher. Of course, the nicest thing about it really is that you can trash from the discard pile, which is like that's an effect not that most trashers don't have at all. So that's pretty sweet. But the bigger thing is that it's both a gainer and it can get you Madman. Um, so yeah, the gaining that can be relevant in a lot of kingdoms. Of course, eh, if nothing else, you can gain other hermits. But yeah, the Madman, it's just like if you know when to play Madman and you know when to not play Madman, you'll just yeah, that card like very significantly affects how the game goes. Like you can pull off some really crazy mega turns. Um, it, it's just so powerful and it's so easy to get too that it can really define how a game goes. So yeah, I think I can't see Hermit lower than centralizing personally. Like even if it didn't have Madman, it would still be a really good trasher, I think. But it does have the Madman, so yeah, you're pretty much always going to get it. Okay, Death Cart. Yeah, Death Cart I'm gonna put in the niche category. It's a pretty good payload card. I mean, 5 coins is nothing to sneeze at, and it does come with the ruins, and usually there's at least some action you don't mind getting rid of to play this, or you don't mind just popping it for 5 coins. Um, but obviously I'm putting it in niche, so I don't think it's that good. Yeah, because usually, I mean, you can get your payload somehow that doesn't give you 2 junk cards when you buy this thing. Yeah, yeah, like I mean, a gold does not add 2 curses to your deck when you buy it. Um, But with that said, like if you are in a good kingdom for Death Card, you can't ignore it because it just gives you so much money. Like Fortress, of course, is a great combo with it. Like if you have some way of dealing with the ruins or like they don't matter, then yeah, you probably want to go for it in some capacity. And it is nice for spiking big values early in the game too. And of course, it runs the ruins pile, so there's that. But yeah, I think in most games you can pretty safely ignore Death Card. It's just like the odd game you got to look out for with it. Okay, so Theodem. All right, I'm a little divided on Theodem, honestly. So like my heart says it goes in the bottom. Explain yourself tier, please. Um, but I can also see it as niche. There are enough situations where trashing it for silver is good, I think, that it kind of goes here. But then there are just so many boards where it's correct to completely ignore it. Yeah, so I'm not feeling generous toward it today. I think yeah, you need a pretty strong justification to go for Fiatum. And it might be something like Masterpiece or Treasure Hunter giving you lots of silver to actually use the points. Um, or it might be something like Lurker that's letting you get money for trashing it. What no, can Lurker do that? Lurker can't do that. I'm thinking about something else. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I just feel like if you're not able to like productively use the untrash benefit and you're not able to mass produce silver, then this is basically a dead card in most games where it appears. So Yeah, Salt the Earth is what I was thinking of. Thanks, Akuchi. And yeah, Salt the Earth Theatem is very, very cool, for the record. Yeah, I think you've got to have just a very strong reasoning to go for this. Um, yeah, because the thing about it is, like, you think about like Vineyard. Vineyard's a really good alternate victory because you just need 3 actions, which are things you want anyway. But Theatem, you got to get 3 silvers, and sometimes it's not easy to get 3 silvers, and sometimes you don't want that much silver. So it's like you got to do a thing you really don't want to do to make it good. Yeah, like I don't know. I'm just not feeling it. All right, altar. So I'm gonna put it like kind of in the middle up here. I think lean towards centralizing, but I think it's more of a staple. I think I overrated Artisan in the base set thing, and that's really the card I'm comparing it to because they're very similar, Altar and Artisan. The thing about it is, like, the 6 cost really does kind of slow it down. Like, you can't get it right away. If you could get it right away, it would obviously be amazing. And but yeah, the fact that it's often delayed getting it, I think, does hurt it a little bit. Of course, yeah, trashing a card for something that costs up to 5 is really, really good. Um, but eventually, you do run out of cards that you want to trash. um, so Artisan kind of has an edge over it there. But we're not really comparing it to Artisan here. We're comparing it to itself, I guess. Yeah, it's nice. Like it's not. It doesn't trash cards quickly, but it does add good cards to your deck while you're trashing, which is very nice. Yeah, you're almost always going to get it, I think. But I wouldn't say it dominates the game so much. It is a really strong gain and play card, though. Um, that should be obvious enough. Because, I mean, you can just get a really powerful card that you can play right away. Okay. Fortress, I think, is also a staple, mostly because it's a village, but also because it's completely bonkers if there's any kind of trash for benefit on the board. Yeah, like, I don't know, if you've got, like, Upgrade, Salvager, like, I mean, almost any trash for benefit card, Fortress becomes amazing, and, like, you have to get them in that circumstance. But even if you don't have that, like, you probably want to get them. So yeah, like, it's a very strong card that just needs combos to make it amazing. If it doesn't have them, it's just a village, and it's pretty good. And I'm pretty sure you could sit around talking for hours about Fortress combos, but I'm not going to do that. Okay, Bandit Camp. Bandit Camp, I also think, is a staple. It's a very good village. It costs 5, so it's a little pricey, but it gives you the spoils when you play it. So what's really nice about that is it means you don't have to have hard treasure in your deck, like silver or gold, because you can just gain treasure and then draw it the same turn and get rid of it and keep your deck nice and thin. So, of course, that's not every game you can do that. There's also slog games where just gaining the spoils from Bandit Camp and having them is nice. So, yeah, really good card, I think. I guess you could say it's a little slower than other villages since it adds a junk card to your deck, but it's a useful junk card. So I don't really buy that. Yeah, I think it's still a very, very good card. Okay. Mystic. I think Mystic goes here, and sometimes, it's nice. Yeah, it's a decent enough payload card. Gives you 2 coins. Get to look at your next card. You get to guess at it, and if you're right, you draw it. I mean, unless you've got some way of like finding out what that card is beforehand, it's not that great. And even honestly, even if you know what card is there, it's still not that good. I mean, you're just drawing a card. Like, yeah, sure, it's fine, but it's only a cantrip. You know? Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's pretty good. Like, if you got a combo like Vagrant, you'll probably get them over golds, I think. But yeah, it's just okay. It's just 2 coins. Don't get too excited about it. All right. Hunting grounds, I think, yeah, I think it's a strong enough draw card. It goes in the staple category. Yeah, definitely +4 cards is a lot better than +3 cards, as it turns out. But to add to that, Hunting Grounds has this cute on-trash effect, which is very, very good. Like, gaining 3 estates from the pile, often, like, you can clinch the game out with that, especially if you can trash multiples of these. Um, but really, that's just icing on the cake. It's the fact that it draws 4 cards is why it's so good. Totally worth it. I think there was like some early article on Dominion Strategy that said Hunting Grounds wasn't that great because it was too hard to buy. That's just kind of laughable. It's such a good card. Yeah, that's how I feel about it. Okay. Count. So Count, I'm putting up in Centralizing. Very good trasher. Any card that says trash all the cards in your hand is probably going to be pretty good, honestly. Now, you do have to take one of the quote-unquote negative effects before you do that. But yeah, honestly, like you can often make the negative effects on Count good for you, especially the top decking. Gaining copper is often the one you'll take when you're trashing, just because you kind of have to for whatever reason. But yeah, I don't know. And of course, don't forget Count does other things. It gains duchies, which can often be really important, especially if it's the only gainer in the kingdom. Um, but yeah, the +3 coin is not half bad either. Uh, it's a very flexible card, but especially it's very good at the beginning of the game. Tracer says it isn't that great because it's too hard to buy. Oh yeah, I guess I don't know. I could see it, but I mean, how low would you put it is my question, because I think at the lowest you would put Hunting Grounds in the usually tier, right? Like, I mean, I think you are usually going to get it in most games. It's a very strong engine card. Okay, Procession. Now this one's tricky, I think. Of course, Procession is a very difficult card to learn how to play. Um, but I think like it's very little argument that it's not amazing. Um, now I don't think it's quite centralizing because there are a lot of kingdoms where you can't quite eke out a good strategy with Procession that I'm uncomfortable putting it up that high. But it is like an amazing card. Like it's better than Throne Room most of the time, I think. Like even though it trashes your cards, that's usually not that big a deal. Procession like speeds games up a lot, and often you get a better card after trashing. So you got to have a good kingdom for it to be like a perfect card, but that's not that rare. And of course, if you can draw the card that turn, it then becomes like really, really good. Um, so yeah, Procession, definitely a powerhouse card. Like, and it just kind of goes to show how good throning cards is, because like you'll even take this drawback where you have to trash your card in order to do it. So yeah, it's pretty nuts. Oh, and it can trash ruins too. That's cool. I almost never use it for that, but it's there. All right. Counterfeit. Yeah, counterfeit is just like uh, super good. Yeah, not quite a staple. Like I don't know. It's a very good payload card, but it's also like very good just for trashing copper. Unfortunately, it can't trash other things, but you know, what are you gonna do? Um, yeah, like pretty much always gonna get counterfeit, like at least one or two of them. Often more than that, like just depending on how much draw you have and how much treasure you have. Uh, yeah, I mean it's pretty cut and dry, right? Doubles your treasure, trashes them. Yeah. So, of course, when platinum's in the kingdom, it gets like pretty nutty because you can like get 11 coin out of playing one platinum. Very good card. I guess I could see someone putting it in centralizing, but I don't think it's really that good, personally. When I say good, I mean I don't think it's that central. The game doesn't revolve around getting it quite as much. I, okay, cultists. Pretty much no argument here. I think from anyone, cultist is like one of the single most centralizing cards in a lot of the games it appears in. Yeah, and not just because it's a junker, but because it's junker that can chain to other junkers, and in addition to junking, is a nice draw engine all on its own. Plus, it, for some reason that I can't fathom, also gets this really good on trash benefit that it totally didn't need to be a good card. Yeah, so Cultist, yeah, it's very dominating card, I think. Pretty much no argument there. To the contrary, at least. I'll be interested though to see in like 10 years maybe if people think Cultist is overrated all of a sudden. Like it's cool to hate on it. Okay, so speaking on cards that's now cool to hate on, here's Rebuild. And since it's Rebuild and this is a controversial one lately, I did some thinking before the stream and like I considered actually putting it in most categories because you know there are rebuild games where it's like the only strategy worth going for, and so you would think like it's centralizing in those games. It is a card that's very often worth getting most of the time. But the thing about it is, you know, if there is a stronger engine in the game, you can beat Rebuild. Like it's not like as dominating as people initially thought it was. So I'm inclined personally, like I'm not gonna go so far as to put it down here. Inclined to put it in sometimes. Like even though like it's obviously a very powerful card, um, it's a card like you only sometimes go for because if there's a better engine that can beat the point gain you're getting from Rebuild, then you want to do that instead of going for the Rebuild deck. Now, Rebuild, of course, has enablers that make it really good. Um, and it's kind of its own archetype. But yeah, I think that archetype's definitely weakened in just the past couple of years as people have learned how to play against it better. Okay, so I'm comfortable putting it here. I think that's probably the most controversial choice on this list, but I'm pretty comfortable with it, at least where I'm coming from. I'm not sure how others feel. Like I think Tracer was saying yesterday he would put it in niche, um, which I wouldn't go that far. Like I think it's good enough that you have to at least consider it most of the time. But yeah, yeah, I think it's certainly was overrated initially. Okay, well I'm done with Dark Ages. That was a big one, but I think I actually finished it around the same amount of time that I finished the other videos, so that was cool. So next time I'm going to do adventures, and I'm only going to be doing the uh, kingdom cards from adventures, not the events. I might do the events in one mega video with the events from empires. Okay, I'll see you then.